in the future, one of the reasons that a lunar base near the pole seems nice,
Mm-hmm.
you know, some are convinced there's a lot of water ice trapped in the lunar poles. And that affords the opportunity, if it's really there, to actually mine your propellant to get home.
Okay. Interesting.
Because you can use water electrolysis, and make hydrogen and oxygen, and then have the propellant to get home. I personally would not want to rely on that. I would rather know that I had the propellant to get off the surface.
So, how long does it take to get to the moon?
2 or 3 days.
And when you're on the moon, there's 1/6 gravity there. So, would you need, like at night when you're sleeping in your bed, do you need to be like strapped into something, or would you actually sleep unless, or if you like rolled over, would you go like, flying across the room or something?
1/6. Well, I'm about 180. That would make me weigh, what, 30? You probably would want to be very gently tied down.
Okay.
You wouldn't need to be too terribly restrained. I mean, 30 pounds is 30 pounds. It's going to sit on the table.
How would you suggest powering something like this?
Power?
Like if you actually have the structure, whatever it is, do you think solar would be the best way to get energy?
It would probably be the cleanest and cheapest.
Okay.
You know, nuclear is another option. There's various types of nuclear power sources,
Okay.
from radiothermal isotope generators, or i.e. RTGs, to small fission-based systems. But then you obviously have some of the downsides of nuclear to deal with. And for our exploration, we're looking at both.
Both. Okay. And then I guess I kind of skipped one general question, but I mean, obviously this is a very conceptual kind of project, but say you needed a structure to withstand and hold people on the moon, would you think that a dome would be a kind of a good idea to start with? Because as an interior designer, my job is to do the interior space. My teacher, said don't spend too much time worrying about how it's going to look on the outside. You really need to focus on the inside, but I still need some sort of like shell or frame or something to go off of.
Well, I mean, a hemispherical dome is probably going to be the most efficient, right?
Okay.
And you've taken structures, right? You'll have a structure that's pressurized to 1 atmosphere internal.
Okay.
And has no pressure on the outside. So what's the most structurally efficient?
Okay. How do you provide oxygen to something that's not just like a lunar module? Like if it was a kind of a big dome, what would be the best way? Just a bunch of tanks?
Well, I mean, initially you're going to have to carry it, right? Now, you can carry that in the form of water and use electrolysis.
Okay.
It would be one way to do it. That's actually how the Russians do it on space station with the Electron. You'll really need to long-term develop if this is really going to be viable and something where you're having continual guests, and not something you're just doing once.
Could you use the water from the moon?
That's possible, yeah.
Okay.
And you'd really like to long-term develop a closed loop, what we call closed loop Eclipse, where everything is self-sustainable. For example, obviously you got water for drinking, and in station, we're not quite totally closed loop, we're a little short of that, but I mean, we reprocess water. We have a urine processor that processes water, but urine basically to the point that it's drinkable. Sounds kind of gross, but
No, my granddad worked on that system.
and so you really need to have, basically closed loop Eclipse where all your mass stays. And for example, in the water, you could take water and make oxygen. Now, breathing mammals create carbon dioxide that has to be scrubbed. You can use the hydrogen from water electrolysis to react in something called a Sabatier reactor to scrub carbon dioxide and turn it back into, I think, water and oxygen.
Can you grow plants on the moon?
I assume you could. We've grown them, at least the little ones in the shuttle and on station.
Okay.
I would assume you could.
Hydroponics. Is there any way to produce gravity other than using centrifugal force?
Unless you know some
I don't.
laws of physics that I don't know.
So is it, so say you wanted to like have a restaurant in whatever this dome structure is, would you have, in order to be able to like cook and things like that, I mean, how would that work if you didn't have gravity? You only have 1/6 gravity. You wouldn't be like traditional cooking, it would just be you bring your food from Earth and then...
I don't know why. I mean, it depends on how you're cooking.
What are the possibilities? I mean, is it silly to think you could have like a kitchen and...
Sure, I think you'll be doing lots of stuff that's like microwave and electric. You could probably make a gas burner work, but you know, combustion in low gravity is not quite the same as it is in 1 gravity, 0 in 1G. But things do combust.
Do you think it's possible to have some sort of like laboratory on the moon? So say if part of the experience is to go out and find moon rocks and you can come back and...
If you have a hotel, I don't see why you can't have that.
Can you have a pool?
I don't see why not.
If you jumped in it, all the water would just go everywhere and then eventually fall back down?
I think you're overdoing what 1/6 gravity will do. This isn't like... This isn't like the shuttle or 0 gravity. I mean, 1/6 gravity, there's still weight. Things still fall down.
And what about having an observatory on the moon somewhere? Where, I guess first, where would you suggest?
Dark side, right?
Right, obviously, but like, is there, how, if you wanted to place this dome somewhere, would you want it to be close to right in the middle where there's dark and there's light, or would you want to...
I think you want it light.
All in the light. So maybe you take a tour
Dark side
out,
of the moon's going to get very cold.
right, so maybe you take a tour like out to a separate building, a separate dome or whatever, which would be the observatory on the dark side.
You need transportation. I mean, you need a space car, a moon car to get back and forth.
Right.
Or you do it remotely. I mean, there's nothing, you know, you can have an observatory, and in today's era with computers and whatnot, you don't have to be there looking through a eyeglass. But the downside to anything that's in space, and particularly at the moon, is you're constantly bombarded with radiation. So you have to have a habitat that will protect you from natural radiation environment, and then in particular the sun gets angry from time to time and has, you know, solar storms, and you know, you've probably read of satellites being knocked out for a certain amount of time because of massive solar flares. Most long duration space concepts have something in them called, you know, basically a storm cellar, where if a large solar event is taking place where the inhabitants can sort of go hunker down in a storm shelter, they may have.
Speaking of the bathroom, how do you go to the bathroom in space? Can you have toilets?
Yeah, I would guess at 1/6G, most everything would still fall down.
And then would you?
You know, the dispersion pattern might be a little wider. I'm not real sure. That might be a subject of a good, you know, CFD model somebody would need to run.
And then would you take the waste and just dehydrate it and shoot it out into the space?
Now that costs you too much money. Just take it out and bury it somewhere.
Okay.
And well, let's put it this way. You know, the water, you're going to want to extract all the water and reuse it.
Mm-hmm.
Solid waste, if you're growing plants, may have some actual fertilizer value.
Okay.
So, and scratch the burying it. You're going to try to reuse as much of it as you can. You're going to extract all the water out of it you can. The solid part, maybe a fertilizer